The Pacific Theater, 1942. Imagine you're a Marine on point, moving through jungle so dense it feels like a living thing. Visibility is a suffocating 30 yards, and the air is thick enough to drink. In your hands, you're clutching a Winchester 12-gauge pump-action shotgun. Suddenly, the wall of green in front of you erupts into a nightmare of motion and sound, a full-throated Japanese assault. Before they can level their rifles or fix their bayonets, you bring your weapon to bear. The sound isn't the crack of a rifle. It's a deafening roar that tears through the jungle. In theory, this was the perfect weapon for the Pacific War. In an environment where firefights happened at point-blank range, the United States Marine Corps had deployed a tool so devastating it should have challenged every assumption the Japanese held about modern warfare, and changed the course of the infantry fight entirely. To understand why the shotgun was so revolutionary, you must first understand the mind of the enemy it was pointed at. Japanese military doctrine in 1942 centered on seishin, or spiritual power, believing it could overcome any material disadvantage. This wasn't just propaganda. It was a calculated response to the reality that Japan produced less steel in a year than America did in a month. Their solution was to make each soldier a master of close combat, where training and spirit would prevail over mechanical warfare. The tactical expression of this was the night infiltration attack, followed by a decisive, close-quarters charge with rifle and bayonet. The Imperial Japanese Army had spent decades preparing for this kind of war. Their training manuals address British rifles, American machine guns, and French mortars. But they had a massive blind spot. Shotguns, weapons they considered tools for hunting birds rather than implements of war, never once appeared in their tactical considerations. They had meticulously prepared for a war of rifles and bayonets at 10 paces, completely unaware that the Americans were about to bring a weapon designed to dominate that exact space. The weapons America brought to counter this doctrine had already earned a fearsome reputation in the trenches of World War I. They were the Winchester Model 1897, designed by John Browning, and its successor, the Model 1912. The U.S. brought them to the Pacific in staggering numbers, with approximately 25,000 Model 97s and up to 80,000 Model 12s entering military service during the war. The older Model 97 was particularly feared because it lacked a trigger disconnector. This allowed for a unique and devastating capability, known as slam firing. A Marine could hold down the trigger, and the weapon would fire a shell every single time he racked the pump. A trained user could fire 6 loads of 0.00 buckshot in approximately 2 seconds. Each of those shells unleashed 9.33 caliber lead pellets, creating a wide cone of destruction. This spreading pattern made missing nearly impossible in dense jungle vegetation. This wasn't a rifle for precise aiming. It was a trench broom, designed to sweep the enemy away with an inescapable wall of lead. The stage was set for a slaughter. America brought tens of thousands of these weapons into service, a perfect tool to counter the enemy's #1 tactic. So why is the historical record so quiet? Why did Japan never file a formal diplomatic protest about American shotgun use, contrasting sharply with Germany's complaint in World War I? Why do Japanese military documents captured after the war make no specific mention of shotguns requiring special countermeasures? And perhaps most tellingly, why do the most detailed, gut-wrenching memoirs of the Pacific War, books like Eugene Sledge's With the Old Breed and Robert Leckey's Helmet for My Pillow, never mention them once? The story of the American shotgun in the Pacific is not the one you think it is. It's a mystery. The Guadalcanal campaign, the first major American offensive in the Pacific, should have been the shotgun's grand debut. And the weapons were certainly there. Marines of the 1st Division landed with shotguns, and photographic evidence shows point men carrying Winchester shotguns during patrol operations, perfectly positioned to respond to ambushes. But when you look at the official after-action reports, a strange silence descends. Take the Battle of the Tenaru River on August 21, 1942. A Japanese detachment was virtually annihilated in a close-range fight, with 789 killed. It was a perfect scenario for the shotgun to dominate. Yet, primary sources attribute the Japanese losses primarily to Browning machine guns and 37mm anti-tank guns firing canister rounds, with only passing mention of shotgun use. This became a pattern. Throughout the campaign, after-action reports focus overwhelmingly on machine guns, rifles, and artillery as the primary weapons affecting battle outcomes. The supposed king of the jungle was a ghost in the official story. So why the silence? Why was this theoretically perfect weapon a ghost in the official records of Guadalcanal? The answer has nothing to do with the gun itself, but with the ammunition it fired. The shotgun's Achilles heel was something as simple as its shell casing. Standard commercial shotgun shells used paper hulls that were extremely vulnerable to moisture. In the 100% humidity common in jungle conditions, these paper hulls acted like sponges. They would absorb moisture and swell to the point where they wouldn't chamber properly. Shells that slid into the weapon perfectly in dry conditions became impossible to load after exposure to tropical moisture. The problem was so severe that some Marines reported shells swelling so badly they had to be hammered into the chambers, an obviously impossible task during combat. This wasn't a minor inconvenience. It was a critical ammunition problem that nearly negated shotgun effectiveness. The perfect weapon was rendered fundamentally unreliable by the very air it was supposed to dominate. The U.S. military was acutely aware of this critical failure and developed a perfect solution: the M19 all-brass shotgun shell. These moisture-proof brass cases restored shotgun reliability for the war's final months. It was the fix that could have made the shotgun the legend it was supposed to be, but this perfect solution came far too late. The military officially adopted the M19 shell on March 29, 1945. To put that date in perspective, the brutal battle for Iwo Jima was already secured, and the invasion of Okinawa was just weeks away. This single fact explains why many Pacific veterans rarely mention shotguns in their memoirs. For the vast majority of the war, when the fighting was at its fiercest, the ammunition problems made the shotgun too unreliable to be truly effective. Even if the ammunition had been perfect, the shotgun faced another, more mundane but equally critical problem: logistics. The weapon's dramatic power was handicapped by the simple, brutal math of war. Each 12-gauge shell weighed approximately twice as much as a rifle cartridge while taking up 3 times the space. For the man on the ground, this meant a Marine could carry 80 rounds of rifle ammunition in the space and weight of just 36 shotgun shells. This logistical penalty scaled up the entire supply chain. On supply ships and landing craft with limited cargo capacity, every ammunition case required justification, and commanders always prioritized general-purpose ammunition for rifles and machine guns over specialized shotgun loads. As a result, veterans recall receiving just 1 or 2 boxes of shells that had to last entire operations. The trench broom was a powerful weapon, but it was defeated by the gritty reality of a supply sergeant's ledger. Perhaps the most powerful evidence for the shotgun's real impact comes not from the American record, but from the Japanese. The Imperial Japanese Army was a highly adaptive force that evolved to survive. Japanese forces developed detailed responses to the American weapons that truly threatened them: overhead cover against mortars, spider holes against tanks, and reverse slope defenses against naval gunfire. They even developed specific tactics to counter the terrifying flamethrower. Yet, in this detailed tactical evolution, there is a complete void. Japanese military documents captured during and after the war make no specific mention of shotguns requiring special countermeasures. Their training materials focused on countering American firepower generally, machine guns, artillery, and flamethrowers, but never identified shotguns as requiring specific tactical responses. This silence is deafening. An army that adapted to survive every other major threat never bothered to develop a response to the shotgun. The damning implication is that they never achieved sufficient tactical impact to warrant official attention. To truly grasp the significance of Japan's silence, we only need to look at what happened the first time America brought shotguns to a world war. In September 1918, an outraged Germany filed a formal diplomatic protest, claiming the American trench gun violated the Hague Convention by causing unnecessary suffering. The German government was so incensed by the weapon's effectiveness that it even threatened to execute captured Americans carrying them. Now contrast that extreme reaction with Japan in World War II. Complete silence. The fact that the Japanese military, an organization not known for its strict adherence to the laws of war, never filed a similar complaint speaks volumes. The German High Command saw the shotgun as a war crime. The Japanese High Command evidently didn't see it as a significant threat at all. If the official records are quiet, perhaps the truth lies in the personal accounts of the men who lived through the fighting. But here, the silence is even more profound. Eugene Sledge's memoir, With the Old Breed, is considered one of the finest Pacific War narratives ever written. He details the brutal close-quarters fighting at Peleliu and Okinawa, yet never mentions shotguns. Robert Leckey's Helmet for My Pillow similarly omits any shotgun discussion, despite his service with the 1st Marine Division at Guadalcanal, the very place the weapon should have proven its worth. These omissions from detailed, Comprehensive memoirs suggest shotguns played peripheral rather than central roles in the average Marine's combat experience. The men who gave us our most visceral and honest understanding of the war never thought the shotgun was important enough to even mention. So if the official records, the enemy's reaction, and the veterans themselves are all silent, where did the myth of the all-powerful trench gun come from? The answer is that the shotgun's iconic status wasn't forged in the jungles of Guadalcanal, but in the movie studios of Hollywood. Popular culture, influenced by films and sensationalized accounts, has elevated certain weapons beyond their actual significance. With its dramatic visual impact and devastating close-range effect, the shotgun naturally attracted such mythologizing. Post-war films depicted Marines clearing Japanese positions with shotguns, creating lasting public impressions that were unsupported by primary sources. In the decades that followed, video games and popular histories perpetuated these images, establishing shotguns as iconic Pacific War weapons despite the limited documentation of their actual employment. This myth-making process obscures the more mundane reality of their primarily auxiliary roles. The powerful story we all know came not from the war itself, but from the stories told after the fighting was done. So if the shotgun was a myth, what was the reality? What weapons did Marines actually depend on when the fighting was up close and personal? The historical record is clear, and it points to two real kings of close-quarters combat. First was the M2 flamethrower, which was introduced in 1943 and appeared in virtually every account of cave and bunker clearing. Unlike the shotgun, its impact was meticulously documented. At the Battle of Iwo Jima alone, Marines employed 27,000 gallons of flamethrower fuel. By contrast, shotgun ammunition expenditure records remain conspicuously absent from the same reports. The second was the Browning automatic rifle, or BAR, which served as the Marine squad's base of fire. It was so crucial that by 1944, every Marine rifle squad included 3 BAR teams, with detailed training programs and tactical doctrine. Shotguns, despite their theoretical authorization, never achieved similar doctrinal integration or combat documentation. While the shotgun was a peripheral tool, the flamethrower and the BAR were the real, documented workhorses of the jungle fight. So, was the shotgun completely useless? No. The historical reality is more nuanced. The shotgun wasn't a war winner, but it was a specialized tool for particular situations. The few available references describe shotguns as valuable for specific situations, but not as primary combat weapons. Veterans recall appreciating shotguns for night security and jungle ambushes, where its devastating close-range power could be decisive. However, these moments were the exception, not the rule. As one Marine veteran who carried a Model 97 on Guadalcanal recalled, "It was good for night watch and jungle paths, but you couldn't engage at range. When the shooting started, you wanted a rifle." This practical assessment is why, according to another veteran, even though each squad was supposed to have one, half the time it stayed with the company gear, too specialized for everyday use. It was a weapon for a specific moment, but Marines needed a weapon for every moment. So we arrive at the final verdict. Japanese infantry may never have expected 12-gauge American shotguns in the assault, but this surprise proved largely irrelevant to battle outcomes determined by superior American firepower, logistics, and combined arms tactics. The weapon's promise was shattered by the mundane realities of war. Its actual combat employment remained limited due to critical ammunition problems, logistical constraints, and doctrinal preferences for more versatile arms. The historical record is clear. The shotgun was a specialized tool, not a war winner. The weapons that actually defeated Japan were artillery, naval gunfire, aircraft, and flamethrowers, backed by an overwhelming industrial production and superior logistics. The Pacific War was not decided by the occasional blast of buckshot in the jungle. It was won by a relentless, coordinated system of industrial and military power, of which the shotgun was only ever a tiny, and ultimately troubled part. And yet, the image endures. The image of a Marine with a trench gun clearing Japanese positions became iconic despite limited historical foundation. This mythology serves a powerful cultural purpose. The shotgun represented American pragmatism, unconstrained by traditional military thinking, a narrative that appeals to a nation's self-perception. This is how history so often becomes a story. The transformation of limited historical reality into extensive popular mythology illustrates how war stories evolve beyond their factual foundations. We crave dramatic narratives, and the truth is often more complex and mundane. In the end, the story of the American shotgun reveals less about combat in the Pacific and more about how we remember it. It's a potent reminder that popular military history often emphasizes dramatic narratives over mundane historical truth.